Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Millennial Money. My name is Lauren and I work for an online personal finance website called Money to the Masses. And we cover a host of investing and personal finance topics over on our website, moneytothemasses.com. Now, if you have been subscribed to our YouTube channel, you may have seen that I did a house buying journey. So I documented the process of me buying my first property. Now, it's been almost a year since I moved into my first home, so I have come back to the house buying series just with a little update of what has been like for me in my property for that past year and some things that I've learned along the way. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing some things to consider while buying a property and things that you may not have known and what you could potentially expect. So one thing that I would consider and say is don't stop looking throughout the house buying process. So the house buying process isn't over until you have exchanged and moved. Our property was downvalued and there were multiple times throughout the process where it could have fallen through. So don't put your eggs in one basket and be prepared if things don't go to plan. So while we were going through this process, our property got downvalued, which meant that the person who went round and valued the property, they actually downvalued the property by £10,000 from what we had originally agreed to pay for the property. And as a result, our lender said that they would not lend us any more than 90% of the downvalued price. So we were then stuck with what we had to do, and we had to try and go back to the sellers and say, this is where we're at. We can only buy the property at the downvalued price because where we're at the bottom of the chain, we didn't have £10,000 to make up the difference to make the sale go through. So we had to come to and negotiate with the sellers about the new property price. And luckily, we were able to agree the property price, the new downvalued price, and the sale was able to carry on. But in some instances, this could cause the sale to fall through. So throughout all of this process, we hadn't put all of our eggs in one basket because obviously there was another hurdle to overcome along the way. One thing I would say is to continually look at other things that are out there for you whilst you are moving, just in case these hurdles do arise and it falls through. Another thing I would say to consider while buying your first property is check what you need when you move in. So when you go through the sales process, you will be given a fittings and contents form that has the details of items that will be included in the sale of your home, such as light switches and curtains. So for example, our sellers on their form decided that they were going to take the oven with them, which meant that when we moved in, we had no means of cooking. And we were aware of this, fortunately, before we moved in, but it meant that we had to try and get an oven so that we could cook once we moved into our property. So it's really important that you pay particular attention to this fittings and contents form so you are aware of what you may need to budget for and purchase once you move into your property. Another thing I would say is the difference between exchange and completion date. Now, I was always under the impression that the exchange and completion date was the same day. It happened on the same day, you exchanged and moved on the same day. Now, that is possible, that does happen, but it doesn't always work out that way. And it didn't work out that way in our case. We actually exchanged 3 weeks prior to moving because some people in the chain were actually going on holiday. But we ensured that we exchanged contracts before they went away so that we knew the sale was legally binding and was more likely to go through. So the main difference between exchange and completion is the exchange of the contract, which, as previously mentioned, is legally binding, whereas completion, that is the date where you physically move into the property. Another thing that you can consider is that it is possible for your property to be downvalued, and this can cause the sale to fall through. So if you followed our home buying journey, you would know that our property was downvalued by the mortgage provider when it was valued, and it was downvalued by £10,000. So we then had to make a decision on what to do. We couldn't afford to make the amount it was downvalued by, so we had to go back to the estate agents and the sellers to say that the asking price needed to be dropped. Luckily, in this instance, it worked in our favour, but if the finances don't add up, this could be a reason that your house sale falls through. Another thing to consider is that people can ask for more money at any time throughout the sale. So until you have exchanged contracts, the house price isn't fixed. Therefore, in theory, a seller could demand more money from you at any point before the contract of exchange. And they may say that the house is worth more money due to the duration of the property sale, for example. So then you may be expected to pay more money for the sale to go through. And then if you're unable to pay the more money, then the sale could fall through. Another thing to consider is that there are different types of home survey and they are not compulsory but are usually recommended. So there are 3 different types. The first one is the RICS Home Survey Level 1. This is the most basic type of survey, and there are usually traffic light ratings which give an overview of the condition of the property, and it will highlight any particular significant issues that you may need to look into, but it doesn't give you a detailed report on those issues. So in this instance, if your property is fairly modern, you may want to consider a level 1 survey because you can be fairly confident that everything in the property is in good condition. Now, the next one is the level 2, the RPSA Home Condition Survey. It's very similar to the level 1 survey, but you have a few additional extras on the survey in a little bit more detail. So this was the survey that we actually had on our property. So it had the same system, it had the traffic light systems, but then it gives a little bit more detail about particular things on what we could do to repair it, whether that's something that is expected due to maintenance that we have to repair ourselves, or it will also highlight issues such as damp and subsidence, and can also point out anything that doesn't meet any current building regulations. So ours had highlighted things that we hadn't necessarily picked up ourselves, or anything that would need to be looked at, or something that we would potentially expect to have to pay out for in the coming years. Now, the final one is the level 3 or the RPSA Building Survey. Now, this is the most thorough survey type, and it gives a real comprehensive analysis of the structure of the property, the condition of the property. So this one is looking at older properties particularly, or properties that may be in poor condition. So you will know a structural survey of the property and whether there is anything seriously wrong. Now, a survey, as previously mentioned, isn't compulsory, but is definitely something that you should consider doing if you are buying a property, because it can highlight any potential issues or any potential costs that you may expect once you move into your property. Particularly if you are buying an old property, it will highlight any potential structural issues that could cost you a lot of money later down the line. Okay, so they're just some of the things that you should consider while you are purchasing a property. If you have anything else that you think that you considered or potentially missed when you were going through the property process, then please do let me know. Or if you have any questions, then email me, lauren@moneytothemasses.com. If not, thank you for watching.